Warm tributes have been paid to the former England football manager Terry Venables, who's died at the age of 80. Terry Venables led England to the semi-finals of Euro '96, having previously been a prolific player, making more than 500 club appearances. He also managed Tottenham Hotspur and Barcelona. The current England men's manager, Gareth Southgate, praised Venables' wonderful manner. Capable, he said, of handling everyone from the youngest player to the biggest star. Our sports correspondent Nesta McGregor looks back at his life.
At the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, a minute's applause for their former manager. Terry Venables dedicated almost 50 years to football, among the most memorable, the summer of '96. His enchanting England vying for glory at the Euros. The feel-good factor had returned to English football, and although the journey ended in semi-final heartache, the Lions could be prideful in defeat.
How old are you now?
16.
So football's your whole life?
Yes.
A young footballer with a dream. By the time he was a teenager, he was living it, scoring goals for Chelsea. But it was as a manager that Venables truly blossomed. In 1982, he guided Queen's Park Rangers to the FA Cup final before a stunning move to Barcelona, where he won the Spanish League title, earning respect on the continent and the nickname El Tel.
Visca el Barça!
Former England captain Gary Lineker played under Terry Venables at Barcelona.
It doesn't matter which player you speak to that's played for Terry, whether it was players probably, way back at Crystal Palace or QPR or Barcelona, all of them would speak incredibly highly of them, not just as a coach, but also as a human being and a lovely, lovely, fun man.
After his time in Spain was up, Venables returned home to London and Tottenham, where he lifted the FA Cup. However, a clash with chairman Alan Sugar and controversy over his business dealings saw him sacked. But in 1994, England came calling, and Venables' coaching prowess reached its peak. At a European Championship on home turf, his team made it all the way to the semi-finals, carried on a wave of national euphoria before a semi-final defeat to Germany on penalties. Current England manager Gareth Southgate described Terry Venables as an outstanding coach and manager, capable of handling the youngest player to the biggest star. While Alan Shearer, captain at Euro '96, wrote on social media, "I owe you so much, you were amazing." Venables stood down as England manager after the Euros. He then went on to manage Australia and Leeds United before a brief return to the England setup as assistant to Steve McClaren. But it's as a colourful and charismatic leader that he'll be remembered, and as the man who brought English football one of its most famous summers.
Terry Venables, who's died at the age of 80. And let's go to the Spurs ground, and our correspondent Louisa Pilbeam is there. What reaction from the fans at today's match, Louisa?
Well, Jane, here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, Spurs played Aston Villa this afternoon, and I have been speaking with fans for the man who was a former player and manager at the club. And it really struck me how keen fans were to pay thoughtful tributes to the man. Many of them said that he was a mastermind of the game, that he deserved great respect. But so many other people spoke of a wonderful character, a man who was so popular among fans. And as one fan put it to me, she said that he was just one of the lads, and that's why they will miss him so much.
Footballers and fans have been paying tribute to the former England manager Terry Venables, who's died at the age of 80. He guided his country to one of its biggest ever occasions, a European Championship semi-final at Wembley in 1996. Gary Lineker described him today as innovative, charming and witty. He played under Terry at Barcelona first and then at Tottenham, where Venables won the FA Cup both as a player and a manager. Earlier, players past and present paused to remember him at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium ahead of their match. Ian Woods now reports.
Thunderous applause from Tottenham fans and players
who heard the news of Terry Venables' death as they were arriving for today's match against Aston Villa. Some might think being appointed England boss was the peak of his career. Barcelona fans will remember El Tel, who led them to a Spanish league title. But to Spurs, he was the man who masterminded their last FA Cup win 32 years ago, when Gary Mabbott was captain.
Terry was a great footballer, he was a great manager, but he was a great character. You know, he was full of charisma on the field and training field with him, and all the time it was always enjoyable.
There were early signs of his leadership qualities when he was Chelsea captain under Tommy Docherty.
Are you expected to shout at the players on the field?
Well, everybody expects to shout at each other, you know, it's not necessarily just the catching.
Not one big lunge.
He took both Crystal Palace and Spurs to FA Cup finals, but then owner Alan Sugar sacked him because of scrutiny surrounding his business affairs. Some at the Football Association shared those misgivings, but gave in and gave him the England job as the country hosted Euro 96 in style.
Gascoigne, he can finish it here! Gascoigne!
Boom! I mean, it was just absolutely brilliant.
It ended in tears, as it often does. Venables was among the first to comfort Gareth Southgate after his penalty miss, and the current England boss paid tribute, calling him a brilliant man, forward-thinking and tactically excellent. Legal battles meant Venables' contract wasn't renewed, despite reaching the Euro semi-finals.
Do you ever think, what if I'd stayed on?
Yeah, of course. Of course. But it wasn't to be.
Gary Neville called him the most technically gifted British coach we've ever produced.
One of my great regrets with England and disappointments was that he was unable to continue after Euro 96. He was a huge personality and character, larger than life, and I think at the time too big for the FA to handle.
Fantastic manager for England. What can you say about him? Wonderful man, wonderful player, wonderful manager.
An icon for football. Yeah, it's a sad day for football.
Bit of a larger-than-life character.
He certainly was.
That the answer's gonna come.
His voice took him into the charts. And his detective novels were adapted as the TV series Hazel. There was so much more to Terry Venables than football.
Terry Venables, whose death was announced earlier today.
And as you've been hearing, former England and Tottenham manager Terry Venables has died at the age of 80. He led Spurs to FA Cup victory in 1991, but also had success as a manager with Crystal Palace and Queen's Park Rangers. Born and bred in Dagenham, the London boy honed his football skills in Essex before playing professionally. But it's as a manager that he's best remembered. Today, Spurs held a minute's applause before their home game against Aston Villa, which ended in a 2-1 defeat. Players wore black armbands as a mark of respect. And after the match, former Spurs captain Gary Mabbott paid tribute to his old manager and told us about the club's big win in '91.
In the first half in that cup final, we were struggling. Everything went against us. Our talisman, Paul Gascoigne, got injured early on. Went 1-0 down. A goal disallowed. A penalty was saved. And then second half, went into half-time. Terry gave the best ever half-time team talk. We went out second half. We turned it around and won the cup. And afterwards, obviously, the embrace between the manager and the captain was very, very special.
Although Venables' family said his death came after a long illness and that he passed away peacefully, it was a shock for many fans who remembered him fondly.
Quite sad, really. He was seemed like a good guy.
I last saw him in '82 when our manager used to come down here, and I had a drink with him. Great man.
What can you say about him? Wonderful man, wonderful player, wonderful manager.